The Linux 30-day challenge.
Okay. Let me just swap the Twitch over to the thingy, the fucking just chatting. Edit. There are 6 people over on the Twitch side. What the fuck? That is never that we never have that many people over there. Okay, there we go. So, he's got a System 76 PC. That's cool. I don't know anything about this guy's channel. I don't know what content he normally does. Let's have a look. In predictions of what's going to happen to this guy, he's going to be assassinated by the Linux Penguins. So he does, like, I guess, hardware review sort of dealio, by the looks of it. Yeah, like PC hardware, CPU stuff. Yeah, okay. So general, like, PC tech stuff. Okay, makes sense. Cool. Let's see what this video is all about. Good content, talks about a beer he drinks during the video. You know what? I can respect that. Are we on 1080p? We'll put it... Yeah, there we go. So let's see why people are talking about this.
The Linux 30-day challenge. So many YouTubers have embarked on this, but I figured I would go through the entire process before I said anything at all. So today, we're just going to go over my results.
Fair enough. I see the beer.
Back to Craft Computing, everyone.
I see.
As always, I'm Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
The year of the Linux desktop. Every year since 1998, we've had to hear about how Linux is finally going to overtake Windows in desktop.
Current year +1. It is always current year +1. You know it. I know it. Next year will be the year of the Linux desktop. No. I guess it depends on what you define as, like, the year of Linux desktop, right? Because people have different goals. If you want Linux to be the primary operating system, sure, we're not there. If you want Linux to be a functional desktop operating system, yeah, I think we are absolutely there, at least in most cases. Certain use cases, absolutely. Certain, like, business use cases, absolutely. But for, like, general people, I think right now, yeah, we are at the point where if you have some technical background, Linux is fine. Now, if you don't, I feel like we know why this video is 30 minutes long, and especially if you don't have knowledge in, like, Linux-specific things.
OS superiority. And every year, we realize that teaching your mom how to open Chrome on Windows is difficult enough as it is.
Very true.
But over the last 5...
I remember having to teach my parents how to send an email and how to attach something to an email. That was not fun. She wrote down every step in a little notebook. And then UIs change, and then she had to ask the question again.
Years, there have been quite a few developments that might make it not only worth it to switch, but easy enough for enthusiasts and professionals alike to make the jump. So I figured it was finally time to take the plunge, and embarked on my own Linux 30-day challenge. At this point, I've experienced the full gamut of life as a Linux professional user. So let's go through the good, the bad, the absolutely amazing, and the downright brokenness that I've lived through over the last month, driving Linux full-time. This all came about...
It's a System 76 PC. Does it have an NVIDIA card? Do they sell systems with NVIDIA cards? Because if it has an NVIDIA card, I can see why he's had some problems.
When my streaming PC decided to start randomly rebooting on me. It started out maybe once a week, usually when I wasn't using the PC. I would notice that I'd log in and all my apps in Windows had been closed. For a while, I chalked it up to Windows updates, but it started happening a...
It's not a System 76 system, it's just System 76 case. Ah, I see. Okay, fair enough.
A lot more frequently, to the point where my PC started randomly crashing and rebooting almost once per day. Again, usually when I wasn't
Windows.
But it finally hit a boiling point where I needed to do something, because I sat down to write out a video, and this has been a video that had been pushed off for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I finally had the information, and I sat down and I wrote my first sentence, and my screen went black. I almost flipped this table over.
I hope he backed up the research. I hope he didn't lose all the research he did as well, and just lost that first line of the script. Because if you lost the research, man, That would be rough.
Also at a point that I really didn't have time to just start diagnosing a random hardware issue. So I did what any sane person would do. I ran out to my garage, I grabbed the first available PC on my shelf, and then I installed Linux, because that sounded like less work at the time than fixing a random rebooting PC.
If it's Windows,
was my System 76 Nebula PC. Now, I built this box specifically to test out Linux as a daily driver, and as soon as that video aired, I promptly put the PC out in the garage and didn't touch it until I came back to it this last month.
Who the fuck has a spare PC in their garage? The kind of person who uploads videos on random PC hardware. That's the kind of person. A lot of this hardware isn't going to go back to the company. He just has it now. So this kind of person is the kind of person who has a random PC just laying around.
So a quick reinstall of Zorin OS 17, and I can finally get
Zorin, okay. Huh. I know a lot of people recommend Zorin, and Zorin is that, like, very Windows-like looking experience. I wouldn't recommend Zorin as your go-to, but I get why a lot of people do. It's the problem I have with Zorin. For anyone, I'll just show a picture of Zorin for anyone who's maybe watching this after the fact. Zorin looks like Windows. Now, the problem with it looking like Windows is it's not Windows. Like, it's Windows... Okay, KD. It's Windows-esque. And the problem you have there is you can start expecting things to act like Windows. And that's where you start seeing very quick places to fall into. Now, I don't know if that's going to be where he goes with this, but yeah, I don't know. Like, there's not really a perfect distro to go with. Zorin is certainly a choice that is common nowadays, though. Doesn't Zorin have a paid version? Do they? I don't know. There's, like, Zorin OS Lite. Yeah, the Zorin OS Pro. So I guess there is. It's $47.99. Okay.
give this thing the test drive it deserved. For hardware, I did have a pretty specific list of requirements, as I have a number of PCI Express cards that I rely on inside of my streaming PC.
Sure.
Luckily, the hardware I put in the Nebula matched up almost perfectly with what I needed. We're looking at a Jingsha X99 motherboard paired with a Xeon E5...
Who the fuck is Jing? It's been so long since I built a PC. Who the fuck is this company? Have they been around the entire time and they're just not shipping in Australia? I don't know this brand.
2687W V4. It's a workstation-focused Xeon with 12 cores and 24 threads, a 3 GHz base clock, and a max turbo of 3.5. It's certainly not the fastest thing by modern standards, but that wasn't really what I needed. It was just fast enough to give me an idea of whether or not Linux would be usable long-term. As for PCI Express slots, there's also a perfect mix inside of here to meet my needs. There are a pair of PCI Express 3.0 X16 slots, a single X8 slot, and 2 X1 slots.
You have no issues running those.
There's also 2 M.2 Gen 3x4 NVMe slots.
That should all work, assuming, depending on what you plug into it.
All that PCI Express, I've got an RTX 4060 8GB GPU from PNY, a Black Magic...
Okay, we're off to a good... We're 4060. I see where this is going. Okay.
PCI Express. I've got an RTX 4060 8GB GPU from PNY, a Blackmagic Decklink Quad HDMI capture card.
Blackmagic, to my understanding, runs pretty well under Linux. Blackmagic capture card. They're expensive cards, but I'm pretty sure the Decklink... Yeah, the Decklink actually has official support for Linux. Yeah. I don't use a PCI capture card myself, but theoretically, this should be fine. Theoretically.
A Mellanox Connect X4, 100 gigabit...
Mellanox Connect X4. I don't know what that is. Mellanox Connect X4. It is a Ethernet card. What the fuck? It's an Ethernet... What? This took me to NVIDIA's website. NVIDIA makes Ethernet cards? I did not know that. I could not tell you support on Linux for this. Sure. I don't know why you need a yeah, whatever.
Network adapter. And since the motherboard doesn't have any native USB-C, I went ahead and installed a dual USB-C controller for my 5 gigabit device.
I'll see an issue with that one.
One of the biggest hurdles with Linux has often been getting all of your hardware to work properly. Or at all, for that matter. Driver support outside of
depending on what you have, like, from what I can see with that, your choices should be fine.
Enterprise-level hardware can be very hit or miss. But I'm happy to say that everything that I installed on this PC was either immediately recognized or installed without any drama whatsoever.
Yeah, it's an Ethernet controller. Surely there wouldn't be any issues there. Actually, there definitely wouldn't be any issues there because it might be, like, it's from NVIDIA. I assume it's something you might use in, like, the corporate space. There's probably just, like, upstream drivers for it. I would assume. That would make sense.
And that is definitely something I didn't expect. NVIDIA has a fairly complete driver installation package on their website, which is definitely a welcome change from years past. The USB-C controller and Mellanox network card were both recognized immediately, so no issues there. The only other device that I had to get drivers for was the Blackmagic DeckLink capture card, which also had a friendly installer package available on Blackmagic's website.
I wonder what it's packaged as. Let's find out. It's probably going to be a deb package. I'm almost certain it's going to be a deb package. Let's find out. Let's see if we can find it. This is the page for it. Linux installation. Linux driver software. Oh no, okay, there's different tabs for the different things. I see. If we go and buy now, can we... I'd never used the Blackmagic website. Maybe I can search drivers. Software? Is it under that section? I don't know where the hell on their website the drivers are. Their website is a mess. Great if we can get ARM64. So this is a few years back when they didn't have drivers for it, I guess. I don't know where the hell their drivers are located on their website. Apparently there are drivers. People are talking about installing the drivers, so they clearly exist somewhere. If someone happens to find them, let me know. But actually, it's probably an RPM. Yeah, it's probably an RPM.
So far, so
maybe
good.
Maybe they have a deb and an RPM. That probably.
Now, this isn't going to be a gaming review. I've looked at Linux gaming plenty of times, and if you haven't tried it yet...
Here? Let me have a look. Is that it? Video... here we go. HDR playback from Adobe Premiere. Capture and playback. I think this might be different drivers. Wait. Maybe? DeckLink. Oh, wait. This software had support for the new DeckLink. Okay, here we go. Linux. Okay, so we can't download it unless we actually own... Oh, wait. Download only. Hold up. Oh, it's a Taji's... Okay. So they just... Interesting. So they don't actually package it. They just give you a... Just straight up... A file for it. Sure. Okay. That's one way to do it, I guess.
It's definitely worth a shot. I'm approaching this video from more of an overview of my workflow and requirements as a content creator, a maker, and an all-around IT guy. As far as my individual software requirements goes, there's the usual suspects like Chrome and Firefox, both of which have had Linux native versions for their entire existence, so you can already chalk that up as a win. As far as communication and productivity,
I don't know if it's been that long, but definitely most of their life.
I use Discord and Zoom pretty heavily, both of which have native ports, and they installed very easily through the Zorin App Store. There are some other things in my workflow.
Wait, is the Zorin App Store...
And productivity, I use Discord and Zoom.
Okay, I guess it's pulling all of its information from FlatHub here. Interesting.
Pretty heavily.
Zoom on Wayland is so bad. Wait, does Zorin default to Wayland? I don't know. I'm going to assume yes. Zoom is better on Wayland now. They actually do have support for the desktop capture portal, so it's not completely unusable.
Installed very easily through the Zorin App Store. There are
they had to support a while back for it,
though, that are a little bit more complicated. Web browsers and video conferencing is pretty ubiquitous on basically any device that you use these days.
Sure.
But we haven't talked yet about video or photo editing, live streaming, 3D printing, IT work.
Well, live streaming, OBS is the tool you're going to be using, and OBS works perfectly, unless you have an additional plugin you want to run. The rest of it, yeah, good luck.
Let's get started. So let's start with, why is this PC known as my streaming PC? Well, I use OBS Studio to broadcast my podcast every single week. By the way, that's Talking Heads, which you can catch live every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news, or on demand on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and basically everywhere else that podcasts can be found. OBS Studio can be installed via Flatpak from the Zorin store, after which I got all of my templates installed for streaming and benchmark recording. And that's when I ran into my first major issue. See, Flatpaks are basically sandboxed or containerized installs. They're meant to...
Both. Not or. It's not an or. This is an and situation.
To be almost universally supported inside of Linux, regardless of the version that you're running.
Yes, it almost is correct, because you need to have something based on glibc. So if you're on something like Alpine, you can't use Flatpaks, but yeah.
This is great because it means that the application is basically guaranteed to work out of the box. But this is also terrible because in cases like mine, where I need direct interaction with hardware, because of the sandbox nature, OBS had zero access to my Blackmagic capture card. That's kind of important. The Flatpak version did have access to my USB HDMI capture, as well as my OBS Bot Tiny 2 webcam, my focus...
That shouldn't happen. That seemed... Yeah, I don't know why that would be happening, because it's clearly showing the device. So why it wouldn't be letting you capture from it is very strange. Yes, you can mess around with Flat Seal, yes, but you shouldn't have to. Like, that should just be working out of the box.
Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, which I use for audio capture, and NVIDIA's NVENC was also recognized and working with no problems. So
yeah, I don't know why your capture card's not working properly, because I have had zero issues with capture cards. That seems like a bug that's worth reporting on. Especially because the device was showing up. So I'm not sure why that would be happening.
Some USB and PCIe devices could be accessed, but not all of them. Well, that's also only partially true. See, the RTX 4060 is supposed to support AV1 encoding, as does OBS. But only H.264 and X.265 were present in the encoding options. OBS doesn't yet officially support AV1 encoding from NVENC in Linux. They require the Intel GPU to be able to do that. Almost like the...
Okay, that's an OBS... That's an OBS fuck around problem.
Development time for this feature was prioritized on Windows because of the massively larger user base. But reversing
I thought the NVIDIA cards did actually support AV1 in OBS. Okay.
We're talking about, not the issue that...
Zorin kernel is old, contributes to the problem as well. What is the version of the Zorin kernel? Is it whatever Ubuntu has? Because it's probably pretty old then.
Also exists. To have full direct access to hardware, you need to use app installers that are specifically made for your kernel or distro. Direct access to hardware, you need to use app installers that are specifically made...
Linux video editing. I don't know if he made the video on Linux or not, or this is something else. This is a great selling point for Linux right here.
For your kernel or distro version. So I had to manually download OBS Studio from their website and install it, rather than relying on the App Store version.
Hold up, what?
About, not the issue that also exists. To have full direct access to hardware, you need to use app installers that are specifically made for your kernel or distro version. So I had to manually download OBS Studio from their website and install it, rather than relying on the App Store version. Once installed, my DeckLink capture card showed up and worked exactly as it should. All four...
Shouldn't Zoran have a package in the repo for it? It's pulling from Ubuntu's repos, yeah? You should just be able to install the Ubuntu package for it. I'm confused. You definitely don't need to do that, that's for sure. Like, I can see why the Flatpak might be causing issues, but... No, the DeckLink wouldn't be going through a portal. At least I don't think it would be. Yeah, you definitely don't need to download it from the GitHub, though. That's for sure.
HDMI inputs worked with 4K 60 FPS inputs and worked basically completely as expected. Now, this isn't the biggest deal in the world. Sometimes you do need to install specific versions of software to get all of the features to work properly. But it does go to show that even when installations of software are made easy, that doesn't necessarily mean they're user-friendly to users who aren't well-informed.
Yeah, Zoran makes it too easy, and if you make it too easy, it's easy to break things. Isn't there a portal for PCI access? Maybe there is? I don't think there is. But his other devices were showing up, so I don't think that would be what it is. I can't comment on that one. Like, my capture cards always work perfectly, so I don't know why that wouldn't be showing up.
I had to get onto Google and figure out why I had installed my DeckLink drivers and my DeckLink still wasn't showing up inside of OBS. It's because my version of OBS doesn't have full access to PCI Express hardware. And
that definitely sounds like an issue with the Flatpak.
That answer was a little bit more difficult to get than it should have been. But one of the more frustrating aspects of migrating my streaming setup to Linux wasn't getting OBS up and running itself. It's actually the window management inside of Linux. Now, in Windows...
The window management inside of Linux. What is the desktop that Zoran uses?
I am hugely reliant on Microsoft's Fancy Zones. It's a power toy and an optional download that allows you to create pre-configured spaces for Windows. In order for my live streams to work, I need specific windows to be open in specific locations. Firefox, for example, I have on the right side of my screen to display news articles that we're discussing, and that needs to be a certain width and a certain height to display properly in the template that I've created. Zoom is open in a window, so you can see...
GNOME does have window rules, though, yeah? You should be able to do some of this stuff.
My co-host's face. I've got other windows...
GNOME does have window rules, yes? Please tell me GNOME has window rules. Because if it doesn't, that's the problem. I hope GNOME has window rules. I've not actively used it. I don't know, man. Probably a plugin. Surely not. Surely not. Oh my god. No. No, it doesn't actually... Oh, okay. If you're using anything besides GNOME, you'd be able to fix this problem very easily.
Zoom is open in a window, so you can see my code.
GNOME is such a fucking... Like, GNOME... Okay, there are so many issues that I see people bring up about Linux, and half of them are just GNOME issues. Okay.
Co-host's face. I've got other windows for live chat. I've got Discord open so I can talk with my mods. OBS itself also needs to be visible. It's a lot of content to fit even on an ultra-wide display. Windows.
Top comment. There are no window rules in GNOME. I see. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is definitely GNOME. Okay.
Once Fancy Zones is set up, it's a drag and drop affair. In Linux...
There is a tiling. There is a Power Toys like extension. I think OMG Ubuntu talked about it the other day. OMG Ubuntu. Tiling shell. Yes. This one. So you can customize different areas you want to drop things into. This is basically what he's looking for. Now, I've said this 1,000 times before. GNOME needs to go and do a poll of their users and find what extensions every single user is using. Because if half your users are using a certain extension, it shouldn't be an extension anymore. It should probably just get integrated into the core experience. If so many people are trying to work around a problem with your desktop by installing modifications to it, just include the modifications. And I get it takes time, sure, but there's not even any discussion about going and doing this.
Well, GNOME is still trying to figure out that window snapping should work in Linux.
He knows about GNOME. Okay.
Well, GNOME is still trying to figure out that window snapping should work every time you try it, let alone listen to you when you want to put a window in a specific XY location. This is a problem, albeit admittedly a very specific one, because as good as OBS has been on Linux, my workflow for setting up the podcast has been a bit of a nightmare. A couple weeks ago, I did some more research and downloaded and installed...
Also, he could fix this problem by just doing window capture instead of capture... so, wait. I just realized. Yeah, he could fix this entire problem by just doing window capture. Why are you capturing a part of your screen and making sure a window is in that specific part? Okay, that's a... I get it, you want it to work, but that is a self-inflicted problem. Why are you capturing like that?
Called PopOS's window tiling utility, which auto-arranges windows across your entire screen. While it's better, it still doesn't allow you to pre-assign exact zones. So I still have to drag and drop, hope the tile manager interprets my actions into where I want that window to fall, and then...
The man has not learned about hotkeys.
Still resize manually as needed. It's certainly not ideal. Not only that, but not all windows inside...
One screen capture versus multiple window capture? Yeah, he's doing everything on a single ultra-wide, which is certainly a method. I wouldn't want to do it like that, but again, it's his hardware. It should work consistently. But I do think some of that is a self-inflicted problem.
Of the Linux desktop environment play nicely with the tiling manager inside of Linux. We'll touch a little bit more on this in just a little bit. Discord, being another Flatpak app, likes to do whatever it wants here. Sometimes it will fall into position, but other times it just doesn't. Zoom is another app that kind of floats on top.
That shouldn't have anything to do with your tiling. That won't have anything to do with a Flatpak. That's just Discord being Discord.
At times, too. Completely at odds with the rest of my window management. But overall, despite...
Yeah, Windows do have some level of control over how they want to be placed. And when you're using an extension, what I said before, if so many people are using an extension, it probably should just be a core part of your desktop. And if it was a core part of your desktop, these problems could be more easily, resolved.
The difficulties, OBS did run perfectly well in and of itself. Now, I don't have access to AV1 encoding, which I would really like to.
That would be nice.
I have done a number of live streams on Linux. I have done a number of screen captures and recordings, and even 2 camera captures, and they have all come out flawlessly. So OBS gets it gets a B+. It doesn't have the bleeding edge tech like it really should, but it worked phenomenally well. Now, while I was throwing my entire workflow into chaos with a new OS, new templates, new layouts, etc., I figured I might as well go all the way and try to kick Adobe Premiere to the curb while I was at it. Now, before we get into that, I want to address a common thread and phrase I've observed through nearly every forum post, every advice page, every Reddit thread.
Don't read those.
It's one of those phrases that seems
Don't read those. Bad idea.
Answering a question. But it's dismissive and borderline offensive if it's the answer you receive to a question. And the Linux community...
Never ever read the forums. They're not useful. Stop it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Don't do it.
Doesn't seem to understand why. Oh yeah, I'm about to piss off a whole bunch of you.
Please do.
One of the biggest hurdles to Linux adoption always has been and always will be software support. Whether that's natively running applications...
Very, very true. Now, a lot of people don't need the software they say they need, but if you're a professional and you need certain pieces of software, if you need the Adobe suite, if you need Microsoft Word, Linux does not work for you at all. No amount of shilling the desktop or anything else is going to change that. It will not work. Now, if you're some random person who just doesn't actually need it, you can do it. But professionals are a very different case.
Ports, emulation, compatibility layers, or straight-up alternatives to commonly used programs. The biggest obstacle preventing the average person from using Linux isn't Linux. It's all the other software that you need to run on Linux to get through your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I see it in every comment section of every video that I've ever posted about Linux.
Hey, you stop using Photoshop. You should use GIMP. Oh, you should use Kden Live instead of Premiere. That's great and all, and they're fine applications, but they're not replacements.
I'd consider switching to Linux, but I use X application, and there's no Linux version.
Yep.
For this example, let's talk about Photoshop. And what does the Linux crowd say when presented with this statement? You could probably say it with me. Oh, you don't need Photoshop. Just use GIMP. It's basically the same thing, and it's open source. The polite side of my brain will then try to explain how, as a Photoshop user, I rely on specific features for my workflow, like AI-assisted background removal or specific plugins and tools that I've grown accustomed to over the last 20 years to get the desired effect. And
see, this is the problem. You're trying to reason with people that didn't reason themselves into that position. You're arguing with people who their personality is using open source and their personality is using Linux. You can never convince these people that your position makes sense. It's not going to happen. Don't even bother trying to do it. It is a waste of time. I have learnt this mistake many, many times.
Looked that I'm after. The more aggressive side of my brain wants to yell at the Linux community from the rooftops that no, it's not. That's like comparing Tux Kart to Mario Kart. That's like saying, don't bother with Spider-Man Remastered because Superman 64 exists. Why use a cinema camera when you have an iPhone? They both shoot ProRes, right? Hey, Bob.
Well, if you ask Apple, they actually will ask that question. Look, just use your iPhone. Shoot a movie on an iPhone.
I got our press conference booked at the Four Seasons. Bartender, I'll have an IPA. And they say, is Natty Ice okay? It's not the same. It's never going to be the same. So don't insult my intelligence by saying they're the same. Whether
they're the same.
the Linux community is trying to be helpful or whether they're trying to be elitist, responses like
I'll definitely reach out to him.
Aren't useful to the person that's asking the question.
No, he's completely right. He is 100% right. And a lot of people, as I said, treat Linux as a personality and don't want to listen to any reason why someone wants to use proprietary software. I tried to explain to someone on Twitter the difference between a drop-in replacement and an alternative. GIMP is a Photoshop alternative, but not a replacement. Well, you're a great example because, like, VTube Studio. Like, yes, there are tools that are being developed that are different, but also try to achieve the same goal. But that's the point. They're different tools. They don't achieve things one-to-one, and that's going to cause some issues.
Realistically and practically, has no direct replacement native to Linux. And that's the case with a number of professional industries and niche software requirements. That's all to say, it's fortunate that in video editing and VFX, there are actually a number of professional apps written natively for Linux.
Yeah, Blender and OBS.
Which brings us back to dumping Adobe Premiere for DaVinci Resolve.
DaVinci!
Let's go. Learning curve of migrating from 10 years of linear experience to a new non-linear editor. That's a bit outside the scope of this video. But
DaVinci is garbage on Linux. Ignoring the GNOME stuff, it is garbage on Linux.
installing Resolve, using the app, exploring some of the issues that I've had with Linux as a platform for this, those are totally relevant. Installation was dead simple. There's an install script that simply runs and
depending on your distro, it updates in a weird way, and some distros it just does not play nicely with. I believe at one point their releases were based on CentOS. I don't know what's based on now, because, you know, CentOS is dead. Let's see. Probably RHEL, I would assume. Let's see. Linux. I don't want to fucking give you my information. Just whatever. Like, whatever. Not my problem.
Inside of 10 minutes,
now it's Rocky? Okay, makes sense.
Resolve and importing clips into my timeline. Navigation of the UI and scrubbing through clips is, shockingly enough, just as fast on this PC as it is on my 64-core Threadripper with an RTX.
This is another thing about using NVIDIA. This is one of the cases where NVIDIA actually is way better on Linux. If you're using the proprietary NVIDIA drivers, CUDA works. You need to use the AMD Pro drivers if you want DaVinci to work. Otherwise, it's going to do CPU encoding, and that's not very good. That's in fact the opposite of good.
X4060 Super. Video rendering speed is also not that far off either. In fact, Resolve ran well enough that my last 10 videos have all been edited in Resolve instead of on Adobe Premiere. And they've all been edited on this sub-$900 Linux PC with an 8-year-old Xeon CPU, rather than on my legitimately $8,500 Threadripper PC.
No, wait, Rusty CO actually works? Okay, I've not tested Rusty CO. Good to know that actually does it now. Okay, I'm corrected.
Just on the other side of the room. Like I mentioned in my podcast setup in OBS, I had some window management issues with DaVinci Resolve as well. In that, you can't. Like, at all. DaVinci Resolve, for whatever reason, doesn't maximize or resize inside of Linux. At least, not that I could...
GNOME. I should send this, just like this specific clip, to the GNOME developers. This is the reason why you cannot be so stubborn about server-side or client-side decorations. There are applications like DaVinci which expect server-side decorations. This is what happens if you don't do that.
Figure out how to do it. It doesn't even have the maximize, close, and minimize icons in the top right of the window.
Yep.
Let alone the ability to drag the window around or grab it and resize it.
Yep.
Those options don't exist. The window opens to cover about 75%.
It does if you're on anything that is not GNOME, because GNOME is broken and they refuse to fix it. They want to pressure every other developer to fix their applications because they don't want to implement a protocol that is a standard Wayland protocol.
Of your screen dead center. So it's got essentially a border of your desktop around it. But it doesn't cover the entire screen. And you can't move the window. You can't resize the window. You can't snap the window to one side or the other. It just kind of is open.
Yep.
What I did manage to figure out is that the Pop! OS tiling manager that I installed will make Resolve snap to full screen.
You can just fucking work around it. Yeah, you know what?
Other applications or
that
windows
works.
For better or for worse. Overall, though, it was incredibly difficult to get all my windows into a place that I could actually use them. And many power users or multitaskers are going to have similar complaints here. Being able to put a window where you want it to go sounds like a small problem.
No, it doesn't.
It is a problem that desperately...
That does not sound like a small problem. That sounds like a core fundamental issue.
User isn't a user who will be willing to power through other unknown difficulties. And instead, they're going to head straight back to Windows or Mac OS and deal with the known limitations of those OSs. Lastly, I mentioned that my last 10 videos have all been edited with DaVinci Resolve. But in 3 of those cases, I ran into multiple video encoding errors in my final render. While I never had an outright failure from DaVinci Resolve, When I uploaded the renders to YouTube and Floatplane, I did experience errors on
He
their
is a
end
Floatplane
when
enjoyer, I
re-encoding my
see.
video. These were all in H.264 via the RTX 4060's NVENC encoder, so there really shouldn't have been any problems.
Why does he pronounce...
But
Wait, I just noticed this. Why does he say NVNC instead of NVENC like everybody else? It's such a minor thing, it doesn't matter at all. I just noticed, though.
Re-encode a couple of my videos multiple times before getting one without any encoding errors that would actually successfully upload to YouTube. For my last couple of videos, I've encoded them with X265 and haven't had the issue crop back up. Whether that means it's fixed or not, I have no idea, and that's not really a position I want to be in when I'm relying on this machine to edit my videos right now.
Now, a lot of people, again, are going to say, well, don't use DaVinci Resolve, use Kden Live, but, like, DaVinci might suck on Linux, but it's still a lot... it's still a lot more developed than what Kden Live is. And that's understandable because, you know, open source, all that sort of stuff. But, like, it's not a replacement.
More pretty major gotcha to running Resolve in Linux rather than Windows or Mac OS. And it has to do with Linux as a platform itself rather than the program. And it has to do with audio decoding. AAC audio is one of, if not the most common audio codecs used by digital video. It's what a good number of cameras use. Your smartphone likely records audio via AAC when you're recording video or even doing like a voice memo. But AAC audio decode isn't supported by Resolve for Linux because of software licensing. AAC isn't available in Linux because it is a paid license to use. Windows
if you're paying for DaVinci, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to include that. Maybe I don't understand how the licensing works, but if you've paid for DaVinci, I don't know why they couldn't include that. Someone has information on that, please let me know.
Mac OS independently license AAC decoding at the OS level, so it's not a concern for programs like Resolve to simply piggyback on that functionality.
There's got to be an FFmpeg workaround here. I almost guarantee there's an FFmpeg fork that has it, without a doubt.
But in Linux, well, Linux is free and open source.
I know Resolve has a free version, but
no paid and licensed decoders available.
But I think with the free version, I don't think you can even do HD video in the free version.
To you by default.
Like 1080p.
There are workflows that you can extract AAC audio from your video files and convert them over to PCM. I did have to do this for some screen capture that I performed in OBS because, hey, AAC is the default audio capture method, as well as my intro and outro animations that I've used literally since 2017. Now, luckily, as far as my main camera,
Hold up, give me a second. No, I'm doing AAC encoding in OBS. Is this a DaVinci problem? I feel like this is another DaVinci problem. Because you can definitely do AAC on Linux. I record everything, like all of my recordings and streams are done with AAC. I'm gonna assume this is DaVinci being DaVinci.
Record all of my A-roll in ProRes LT, which encodes audio as PCM by default. If I were recording video directly inside of my cameras instead of using an Adamus Ninja though, those record via H.264, and I would have to add a pre-processing step of converting audio before I begin editing. Like I said about my experience with OBS and podcasting and Windows setup, it all worked.
Sort of. Resolve only supports the actual AAC, not the FOSS reverse engineered version. Oh, so it is DaVinci doing stupid things. Right, I see.
But it's not necessarily ideal. I know I ranted already about Photoshop's lack of alternatives, and that's definitely going to be a sticking point for me if I decide to continue daily driving Linux. I'm going to need to find something that handles my image and asset creation
Photopea.
both as well and as quickly as I could do it in Photoshop. If you have any suggestions at all, please leave them down in the video description. I'm all ears looking for new software. And I just realized you're all just going to suggest to use GIMP.
No. Don't do that.
One of the alternatives I have been looking into for Photoshop is Affinity Photo 2, as I have a number of friends and colleagues who have used it and have all given very good feedback around it.
I hear good things about Affinity.
There's also still no Linux native version, and I don't know if you've checked out the Linux landscape when it comes to photo editing software. Yeah, there's a reason everyone still recommends GIMP. I could go on and on about a number of other highs and lows that I've had with this machine. Overall...
You can make GIMP appear like Photoshop, that's not the problem. That is not the problem. The problem is the functionality. He already talked about AI background removal, plugins you rely on. Like, it doesn't matter how it looks. The problem is GIMP just doesn't have the functionality that a multi-billion-dollar company can put into their software. And that makes sense why it's not there. But if you rely on that functionality, like, you rely on the functionality. Like, you just can't work around it like that.
Business continuity has just kind of worked. I know I
swear at least one of them work under Wine. Yes, you can run the old versions of Adobe under Wine, but like I said, he relies on AI background removal. That's a relatively new feature that's been added.
Embarked on this project with some pretty specific goals and requirements, and my use case is not going to mirror anyone else's. I run a live stream podcast with remote guests where I also need to display content from the web via window sharing. I edit long-form video content. I design 3D models for prototyping. I manage my IT infrastructure. And I require some pretty specific hardware to make all of that happen. Overall...
Oh, I can, just a sec. We love patents. Patents are my favorite. Think this would make a good discussion for Take Over Tea. Yeah, but this looks like another one of those too big to care. I don't know. I'll reach out. Seems like a chill dude.
I think I would have to give my experience a B-. Well, basically...
I'm impressed. He seems very, how would I say it? Nice with his grading. Like, can't move the window, can't do this, can't do that, can't do these basic things. B-. I would be giving it a D at that point.
And I've been able to keep running my business with basically 0 interruptions and continuity. And that's a really big thing to say, and I didn't think I would be here saying that. There are still some major headaches that actually still might keep me from switching to Linux full-time. One of which that I felt I harped on a lot.
I think playing around Resolve shortcomings in the free version. You're going to have a great time using it on Linux. You can pay $300 to fix all your problems. Yeah, my understanding is the pro version is just, like, way better.
Window management. It's actually near the top of my list when it comes to my streaming setup. Having a repeatable window management solution is crucial when it comes to running my podcast on it.
Wow. Imagine that. Imagine window placement being important. Wow. Imagine that one of the desktops just has this very, very simplified way of looking at how people use a computer that just doesn't fit. Wow. GNOME.
And has basically been a sore spot when setting up every show for the last week. What should take 20 seconds inside of Windows took me between 5, 6, maybe even 10 minutes.
I would like to see him try out something KDE based. Because all of these window management problems would be dealt with instantly on KDE. Now, there would be other problems on KDE, without a doubt. But at least the Windows stuff would be perfect.
Inside of Linux every time I sat down to do a show. Now, that doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it's still time.
No, it is a huge deal.
That was basically automatic previously. This is compounded
Fedora
with other
KDE?
applications like Resolve
Fedora
having
KDE.
zero window management ability at all. I can force full screen, but I can't move or resize the window to multitask with other applications, making the overall process of editing a video and trying to import footage and editing a photo or a graphic to import into your timeline that much more difficult.
Yes.
For video work,
correct.
there's the current lack of AV1 support through NVIDIA's cards inside of OBS.
Yeah, that's an OBS problem.
Decoder support in Resolve.
I don't know why, like, that, okay, OBS is an open source application, right? But I don't treat OBS the same way that I treat, like, some random terminal. The reason I don't treat OBS the same way I treat some random terminal is this right here. This is the reason. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Also, this is the reason, and this is the reason. This is why I don't treat them. Why the hell is Yamaha? Oh, yeah, I guess Yamaha does. I have a Yamaha audio mixer. I was like, wait, Yamaha makes audio stuff? Yeah, they have. I literally have a Yamaha audio mixer. I don't know why they don't properly support it. I don't know if it's a like NVIDIA driver issue or what the deal is. But yeah, they should properly support AV1 on Linux. Oh man, window management. I actually have to write something in a research lab I work in, and opening terminals and automatically placing precise location is so much nicer. I assume you're using KDE then, or I had to write code to unset whale and emp variables. Are you doing that on KDE? The day I switch to KDE, I already know that I'll like the window rules. The window rules are really good on KDE. Like, you don't, unlike Hypeland, Sway, things like that, you don't need to go and like work out some weird config format. On KDE, it is perfect. It is simple. There is zero thought in how you do window rules. If you wanted to do a window rule for like, I don't know, this window right here, you click add new, you give it a description, and then, what is it? All right, add property. Add property? Detect window properties, that's it. You click this, and then boom, you can just set any properties of the window, and you can just manually position it where you want it to be, and then just copy those rules. This is nice. It would be nice if, why is that icon missing? It would be nice if GNOME had something similar.
Both of which have more to do with Linux than their respective programs. While AAC audio isn't the most important thing in my video workflow, it's still a nuisance anytime I import a clip with AAC audio.
Yeah, DaVinci should stop doing that.
From it. That means rather than just importing the clip and starting to use it, I have to go through a 2 or 3 minute process of making sure that clip is usable. That's time that
DaVinci just doesn't want to work properly. That's the only reason it's like that. There's no reason why AAC audio shouldn't work. They just don't want it to work.
Sucked out of the overall project. And if you get a project with 10 of those, guess what? You're going to spend 30 minutes now processing your clips before you can start editing them.
I didn't say KDE was perfect. I said it would fix the window rule, the window positioning issue. There are other issues with KDE. Do I need to show you that? Wait, I didn't even know if you were here for the stream when this happened. So if we go into edit mode, if I can click it properly. Wait, hold up. No, change that first. Okay. Okay, sweet. If we go into edit mode, we add a panel. Give it a second. I don't know why it takes so long to add a panel. Is it going to add the panel? Okay, I guess... take back what I said. It's even slower now. Okay, there we go. Cool. I'm going to chalk that up to streaming. If we remove this... No, not remove that. Remove... Hold up, sorry. Remove the entire panel. We want to. And then we go... Undo. Hey, look at this. The panel's still in edit mode. We are not in edit mode, and yeah. Yeah, it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. But when it comes to the window management issue, that issue would go away.
in a process that works flawlessly on every other OS. I'd also love to start encoding my live streams and long-form videos with AV1 instead of H.264, but that's also not going to happen until we get official support inside of the OS. And that's also not to say I didn't find programs that
I think there is official support in... There should be official... Yeah, I think there is. It's just whether or not applications decide to hook into it.
Have an alternative inside of Linux.
Once again, DaVinci.
Again, look at Photoshop and look at a number of other solutions that you probably run on a daily basis. The lack of software support for specific applications is always going to be an issue.
Video issue, I use AV1.
The majority of my needs have been filled nicely. OBS, Resolve, Discord, Zoom. There are other requirements that just have no Linux alternatives. Photoshop and Affinity Photo might be able to work via Wine, but then I would also be...
Old versions, I can't speak for Affinity, but yeah, Photoshop, ever since Creative Cloud, things got really complex.
Be entirely reliant on adding more complexity and potential instability to an app that I use for my business. And that's not exactly the best solution either. Is 2024 the year of the Linux desktop? I still can't say it's 100% ready for everyone to simply ditch Windows or Mac and jump ship. But it's also not impossible to switch like it used to be. Chrome and Firefox both work just as well, if not a little better than they do on Windows. Also, browser plugins for...
Most things, there are a little issues that do exist. One of them relied on a Wayland protocol where it's like a minor thing where you like drag a tab out and it could attach the whole window to your cursor instead of just a little picture of the tab, but it doesn't matter.
For the most part, just kind of work too. So things like VPNs and password managers will easily follow you over to Linux. Many of the apps that users rely on day to day are also available natively as well. If you're a professional, you're probably familiar with needing to install Zoom, Slack, Teams, Discord. All of those have native Linux clients for keeping in touch.
I really hope your job doesn't use Discord.
Colleagues and for your business needs. I just don't know that I'm going to keep Linux here on this desk as my main PC. The time saved from the OS being a little bit snappier and the lack of random reboots from Windows updates and lack of hardware failure from my previous PC is definitely appreciated here. But pieces of my workflow were also slowed down pretty significantly in some pretty critical areas. But that doesn't mean I'm going to drop Linux entirely. I've actually been running Zorin OS on my laptop as a daily driver for almost a year now.
Oh, wow.
And for what I need out of that...
I thought it was weird that he had such a knowledge of Linux after a 30-day Linux challenge. That makes a lot more sense now. And that also makes sense why he went with Zorin. Like, if he was already running Zorin on another device... I still wouldn't recommend Zorin. I think he should go something KDE-based.
Absolutely flawless. It's been an interesting journey to quit Windows cold turkey on this machine. But because of the extra requirements that I have, I did find myself walking over to my Windows workstation a number of times to finish up critical tasks. But Linux users can certainly be proud of where the OS is at today. I mean, I even took a Linux desktop to a LAN 2 years ago without a single issue. It has certainly been an interesting month. Even though I've used Linux for years, I still learned quite a bit here. And I'm really happy
Should be on Kubuntu or KDE Neon?
I know I went over a
maybe
lot
not Neon
here, both good and bad. But I'd be interested in hearing from all of you about your experiences. How many of you actually daily drive Linux? What do you do on it?
Never used it.
What works?
Nope. Never touched the thing. Who would ever want to use that Linux thing? That's awful. What a terrible, terrible, terrible operating system that no one would ever want to use.
And I also want you to be honest.
What's Linux?
What do you struggle
Exactly.
with? What doesn't work? What are your difficulties?
What
are some solutions?
What doesn't work? Well, I have specifically chosen hardware knowing that it will work on Linux now. If you were to go into it randomly buying things, most of your hardware is going to work, but you are going to run into issues, especially if you have more hardware needs than just a regular person. Like, if you need a certain mixer board, most of them work. If you want to use some of the main ones, like the Scarlett stuff, that works. My Yamaha board works, but a lot of others are a bit iffy. If you need some, like, PCIe capture cards, some of them a bit iffy. External capture cards, as long as they pretend like they're a webcam, they work. If they don't, a little iffy.
Came up with to solve those problems. Sound off in the comments below, but remember, not every piece of software can be replaced with GIMP. That's going to do for me in this one. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. And if you want to help support the channel and the
still
things
3
that
minutes
I do
left.
here,
What is this last 3
head on over
minutes?
to craftcomputing.store, pick up one of our nucleated pint glasses, and start drinking like a pro. As always,
is a pretty cool
thank you all
cup.
so much for watching this one, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, everyone.
What is the last 3 minutes? What the fuck is the last 3 minutes of the video?
Beer for today is yet again from Iron Horse Brewery in Ellensburg, Washington. It is the Tiramisu Death. Now, if you remember last week, I had Cookie Death, which was another dessert-inspired beverage from the folks up at Iron Horse.
If I was to do this, so I like to bulk record my videos. By the by the last video of the day, I would be 5 or 6 drinks in.
This one is also based on the same base beer, which is Quilter's Irish Death, and one of my favorite dark ales. There we go. This one's a little bit darker than Cookie. A little bit of an amber tint to it as well. I don't know if that'll come through on camera, but it's a good-looking beer.
I don't drink beer.
Not nearly as sweet as the Cookie Death was. This reminds me a lot.
I would
more
imagine
of
something called
Quilter's
Cookie
Irish Death,
is
which
sweet,
the beer
yes.
that it's based on. Cookie Death had cookie dough, overly sweetened nose on it. This one, honestly, just kind of smells like Quilter's Irish Death. You get a little bit of malt on there. It's not too heavy. It's not overbearing. There's
He seems fun. I hope he says, I'll reach out to him. I'll see if he's up for it.
I'm a pastry fanatic. I'm not big into sweets. I don't really like cake. I like ice cream.
This is such a weird outro.
Pastry, specifically donuts and
Does he do this for every video?
Pastries like tiramisu. Definitely a dessert beer, but a
What does
very
that mean?
light dessert beer.
The hell does dessert beer
This is not
mean?
a pastry stout. Pastry stout is usually a stout that's so thick that you can cut it with a knife. This is a dark beer, but it's so much lighter bodied.
Kind of like dessert wine? What are you saying?
There is a little bit of a...
Dessert wine, mate. If you say the word dessert wine, you sound like an alcoholic. What do you mean dessert wine?
I wouldn't go so far as to call it pastry flavor with this.
Or as you misspelled, desert wine.
Which is kind of nice. Like I said, I'm getting like croissant or Danish. Way more than tiramisu. I'm also not getting some of the deeper,
Time to rethink
richer
your outro.
flavors that
I just need to get like absolutely hammered every outro. You're not a bad idea.
Tiramisu. I'm not getting coffee or nutmeg or cinnamon or you know, those darker sweetness. I'm getting almost a little bit of vanilla and caramel. It's not bad, but it's not tiramisu. Now, I'm not going to get into the learning curve of migrating from 10 years of Adobe Experience.
That's about right, yeah.
Adobe Experience. Is that really what I just said? Beer's better than I thought.
Sure. I like the dude. Seems like a fun guy. In summary, GNOME bad. GIMP is not Photoshop. Try KDE, has good window management. Yeah, in conclusion, oh, he's on Mastodon. He is over on Mastodon. Let's see if his account is actually active or he just has a Mastodon. Because there are a lot of people out there who, they made one back when Twitter took over, when Elon took over Twitter, not Twitter took over Elon. The answer to that question is a big fat no. I will send him an email because that seems like something he will actually check. Wait, actually, hold up. There is a chance that he follows me. I'm gonna check. I doubt it, but random people fucking follow me that I didn't realize follow me.